they'll hand over your data to any alphabet agency that comes calling.
Raise your hand in the chat if you have T-Mobile as a cell phone service. I'm going to wait for everybody to put your hands up in the chat and then realize that you could be
Press 1 in the chat if you have T-Mobile, because Craig doesn't know how to ask questions.
Or F's in the chat. F's in
That
the chat.
works too.
There you go.
You put an F in the chat.
F's in the chat. That's right. So here we are. We had a new terms of service that is dropped on T-Mobile services as of today. And some people have looked into this T-Mobile riffraff and realized that this could be actually a very bad and scary thing. And Blabs, I'm going to let you read this and kind of give everybody a rundown as to why this is could potentially be scary, but go ahead.
All right, so this is from Real Joe. Most of you guys know her formerly as Joe Locked and Loaded Latina. So, T-Mobile has quietly updated their TOS to include fines for content they don't agree with. Beginning on January 1st, 2024, they will be fining users who commit perceived violations on their bandwidth. Who knew in America that phone providers would now be policing the content of your text messages to find you? SHAFT, or SHAFT, is an acronym that stands for sex, hate, alcohol, firearms, and tobacco. It outlines the categories of text messages specifically regulated due to moral and legal issues and is monitored and enforced by the Cellular Telephone Industries Association, CTIA, and the mobile carriers, who get to determine what is and isn't hateful. Will political text messages be censored now as well going into 2024?
Sounds like a bad mother. Shut your mouth.
I love that Shaft reference. Love that. I guarantee Blabs didn't understand that, but that's okay.
I just was told to shut my mouth.
Right.
Shut your mouth.
I am female. I sit down.
So here we are. T-Mobile has updated. This is their entire terms of service. Yet people have gone in and they've said, "Wait a second, this is not right." This guy over here says they actually did this to him in 2020 when he ran for Congress, but. There's a customer service person here, and they have obviously closed this for comments. It's done. It's done. We've responded. This is it. They said the changes only apply to third-party messaging vendors that send commercial mass messaging campaigns for other businesses. The vendors will be fined if their content, if the content they are sending does not meet the standards in our code of conduct, which is in place to protect customers from illegal or illicit content and aligns with federal and state laws.
Man, I wish I got texts asking if I want to buy guns and bullets in January. Am I the only one?
So
I mean, the ones that I'll inevitably lose in the fishing trip, I mean.
That's right. That's right. That's right. As Phone Punk says, it's to protect us. That's right. It's to protect you because you don't know what's good for you guys. What are you talking about? This is crazy. But they're saying that this is only for commercial mass messaging campaigns and third-party messaging vendors, okay? Let's just say, look, 2024 is going to be a very important year, right? But I think there's an election this year, right?
Right.
Let's just say Joe Biden wanted to send out a giant campaign, and T-Mobile said that his messaging didn't align with their code of conduct. That doesn't sound very fair, right? And I think that's the issue here is that there could be they're saying it's third party messaging vendors, but some of those third party messaging vendors could represent a single person. And it goes back to they know better than you do, which is a scary thing to think about.
Which is hilarious because all the while they're selling your data and letting you be texted by Chinese organ thieves and shit. Like they don't give a fuck about you being scammed. I get scam calls every 15 minutes, right, on my provider. I imagine T-Mobile's the same.
Right. Do you and Blabs, have you received this? Like, I think everybody's received probably a scam call in the last 24 hours,
actually,
right?
The last couple of weeks, I got a whole bunch of scam phone calls and text messages. But luckily, since in the last 2 years or so, my provider has pushed out those block things where you can block. Like, even if they email you, right? Let's say like like through an email, but it's a text message, you can block those now too, which a couple years ago you couldn't do.
This goes back to
they care so much that we have been trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty is like the biggest meme on the internet. Yeah, absolutely. They give the
Or your
the
health
beginnings of a
insurance.
fuck. Yeah.
How many of y'all in the chat have received a scam call in the last week? Because I can go back and I think I've received probably 3 in the past day, but this goes back to specifically with this, that you should always read your terms of service. And I know that they're a pain in the butt. I know they're filled with legalese, but the fact that Joe went in and actually read this is pretty outstanding. Did she find this when she went through Blabs? Or
I don't know how she found it. I mean, I know she's very much in that political sphere, so maybe she was sent it or something, but good for her for sharing it on Instagram, because that's how I saw it.
do you think that this trickles into personal use as well? I mean, if everybody signs the terms of service, technically it applies to everybody.
Mm-hmm. And what's to say other providers aren't going to start doing it too? How
Razor?
many people have T-Mobile? I feel like that's one of their smaller ones. Like, isn't AT&T and Verizon the 2 big dogs?
I don't know. Let's find out real quick.
Yeah, I Google.
They advertise. Well, I see their advertisements all the time. And
Yeah.
the thing about T-Mobile is they gobbled up Sprint a while ago.
Right. T-Mobile is I believe they're pretty large.
Yeah.
T-Mobile is okay. So here's their market share right here. Thanks to Statista over here. T-Mobile is the green company. So they have a
third biggest.
Yeah, they're pretty large. Holding as of this second 23% of the US market share, which is crazy.
Shit. Yeah, they're the biggest.
So, which is, by the way, I was in downtown Dallas a couple days ago, and AT&T holds 46% of the market share. In the middle of downtown Dallas, there's 4 giant buildings that are owned by AT&T, and it really puts in perspective the just sheer tremendous wealth and revenue that these guys are generating on a month-to-month basis when they own essentially a couple city blocks in right downtown of a major metropolitan area. And these buildings are 35, 40 stories tall, and they're filled with just ridiculous amounts of people. They're their own little cities. It's insane to think about. So
you remember back in the like 80s and 90s when AT&T and Sprint and MCI were having those, before the cell phones, they were having those super like passive aggressive commercial wars on TV.
Vaguely. I think I do.
You remember
vaguely.
this shit? It was like, did you know that MCI fucked your mother? Like, it was literally, they would have some lady on camera just like, did you know that they're in league with the Russians? And it was crazy. You got to go back and watch this shit. It was like a full-on fucking war.
That's awesome. That's
great. I missed those.
Competition's a good thing.
Right?
I just missed the Verizon one with what's his face's name? Wasn't it James Earl Jones and stuff like that? He used to do those commercials, and then they would do that. Can you hear me now? Good. How about now? Good.
Yeah.
Those were the fun ones. Nah, I don't know.
Well,
anything.
And that's just it. The idea of competition is a great thing, but until you ultimately buy your competition, and then you become a conglomerate, and then all of a sudden there's 3 or 4. Like, you go back to this data here, and you look at the amount of people that are in this space, the amount of companies that are controlling the data here, and you go, wow. So there's 1, 2, really 3 companies that are controlling all of the data in the United States from a cell phone perspective, which is just nuts. AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, US Cellular, just a drop in the bucket. And those 3 companies control the whole shebang. So, yikes. Crazy stuff.
They're not exactly the most ethical corporations either. They're not, they'll hand over your data to any alphabet agency that comes calling. It's, yeah.
Right. Well,
between that and all the Google spyware on the Androids and Apple handing over your data.
Well, it's funny because down in the center of all those buildings, there is a plaza that was named after the AT&T chairman, who was the chairman from like 2003 to 2020. And my first thought was, that is one ruthless motherfucker. Like that guy. Like, if you're a chairman of AT&T for that growth period, you were busting that ass, man. Crazy stuff. But
and isn't Warner Brothers looking to merge with AT&T, or have they already done that, or something like that too?
It's honestly it's hard to keep track
Right,
of what
because they keep
companies,
changing.
right? Which at a certain point, there's got to be someone's got to step in, but the government ain't going to do that. So
Is that guy dead? I assume.
no, he's still alive. I thought
Seriously?
That's so positive.
Yeah.
Is he dead?
yeah,
he's like a monocle and a moon laser away from being a Bond villain at this point.
you know what? He's like he was fairly young. I'll say this: he probably retired with a giant golden parachute. Probably lives on an island somewhere, and just does whatever he wants on a day-to-day basis, or probably consults and makes a few million a year off consulting with other CEOs and stuff like that. So whatever, it's crazy world. Anyways, read your terms of service, guys. That's the moral of this story. But what do you think about this? Leave us a comment down below. We read every single one of them. Also, make sure you hit the subscribe button because you have found your home for common sense in the gaming and entertainment worlds.